Happy Monday morning, everybody, and welcome back to another podcast. Did anyone watch the Oscars last night? I didn't, so you have to tell me about it. But hey, shout out to the Best Picture winner, along with all the other winners, like Spike Lee finally getting his Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay, but not director or Best Picture. But hey, he got an Oscar after all these years, so congrats to him. Let's move on to the box office. So last weekend we have two wide releases. One is How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World, and the expansion Fighting With My Family, starring The Rock, Dwayne Johnson as himself. Let's see how those movies did at the box office. Alright, let's jump right in. As expected, coming in number one is How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. It is the third How to Train Your Dragon movie. I said the movie could probably open somewhere in the range of 35 to 40 million because I thought, hey, it has been a number of years since the last movie, and sequels normally tend to drop over time, except this one didn't, right? This movie opened, the third How to Train Your Dragon movie opened to 55.5 million. These are estimated figures. The actual numbers haven't come in yet since I'm doing this early, so these are all estimated numbers. So 55.5 million, it could come in a little bit lower when it's all said and done, but still it's a pretty good number, and it is the franchise best, right? The first movie opened to 44 million, the second movie opened to 49 million, and the third one 55.5 million opening. So yeah, it's doing well for the franchise. It's going strong. I thought it would take a little bit, but I was wrong. Let's see how this movie would do in the coming weeks, since it's well reviewed and 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. The budget is decently priced, 129 million. And it's gonna do well box office wise here and overseas. It has already grossed 216 million for a worldwide total of 274 million. So yeah, with this opening here and overseas figures, this franchise is strong. It's still going strong. We're gonna see more How to Train Your Dragon, and it's a surprise that it takes so long for DreamWorks, the animators for this franchise, takes so long to turn these things out. But there you go, another huge opening for How to Train Your Dragon. And let's look toward the second weekend, and judging by the reviews, it's gonna do well. I think it's gonna hold on, probably gonna be sub 50s, the drop off in the second weekend, but we'll see. Alright, number two is Alita Battle Angel. It fell huge, about 58%, dropped 58% from in the second weekend to gross about 12 million. This movie is based on a manga, Battle Angel, Alita, with the same name, right? A similar name. They switched the names around. It was in development for a long time by James Cameron. He wrote the script along with Alita Greta, I believe, and hand this over to Robert Rodriguez. He's working on the Avatar films, by the way, and he's producing it. So Robert Rodriguez is directing this one. And opening wise, it opened okay. I mean, 28.5 million for Battle Angel. I said it could probably open 40 to 50 million for 3 days in its opening weekend. But I guess Robert Rodriguez is not James Cameron, and these are like typical Robert Rodriguez opening numbers. So about nearly 30 million opening for Battle Angel is okay. Let's see how well it will do in the coming days. I mean, huge drop off domestically, about 60 million after 2 weeks, and worldwide it is at 263 million, with 202 million that from overseas, and the budget is 170 million. So yeah, what the overseas figure is doing okay, but still has a ways to go to to be profitable. Alright, number three is the Lego Movie 2, the second part. It dropped about 52% to pull in about 10 million in its third weekend. Domestic gross is about 83 million, and worldwide it is at 136 million, with 53 million of that from overseas. And the second movie is actually doing worse than the first movie at the same time frame, right? So after 3 weekends, Lego Movie 2 has a domestic gross of 83 million. For comparison, for the first Lego movie, after 3 weekends, it has already grossed 183 million. So so more than half off the gross of the first movie. But still, if the budget is in line with the first movie, between somewhere in a 70 to 80 million range, it's still going to do well for itself. Alright, let's move on to number 4, which is the expansion of Fighting With My Family. It was in limited release last weekend and expanded to wide this weekend. It pulled in 8 million in its second weekend, adding over 2,000 more locations. Let's see, I said the movie could probably, in this past weekend pulled in 25 to 3 million because, hey, it has The Rock in it, Dwayne Johnson. And unfortunately, Dwayne Johnson kind of play a side character. This movie stars Florence Pugh and Jack Lowden as siblings who try to make it into the WWE, this wrestling federation, and The Rock is there playing himself. So another movie that's way off my projection right there, but still the movie is actually well reviewed, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a pretty good per theater average when it was opening limited in about in 4 locations, about 35k per theater average in limited. But when it expanded, it only pulled in about 3k per theater. So quite a drop from there. So let's see if it has legs in the coming weeks. Alright, number 5 is the romantic comedy, Isn't It Romantic, starring Rebel Wilson, I believe in her lone starring role. It pulled in 7.5 million in the second weekend. Wilson stars as a woman who's trapped in a PG-13 movies, like swear words are bleeped out, and sex scenes are cut and jump to the morning after, etc. And still okay. This is another movie that was off on. I said the movie could probably pull in about 20 million for 3 days, but it only opened to about 14 million 3 days. Reviews wise, it's actually pretty good, 68% on the tomato meter and a B cinema score. So critically, it's doing well, but box office wise, again, Rebel Wilson, this is a test for her. This is her in her lone leading role, and she's pulling in actually good numbers. It depends on what the budget is. When it's all said and done, this movie could probably close out in the maybe 45 to 50 million range domestically. Alright, number 6 is What Men Want. It pulled in 5.2 million in its third weekend, a drop off of about 51% from the previous week. Let's see, 45 million domestically. And worldwide it is at 49 million with about 5 million of that from overseas, but the budget is only 20 million. Number 7 is Happy Death Day to You, the sequel to the 2017 horror movie. It pulled in about 4.9 million, nearly 5 million in its second weekend. Drop off is about 48% from the previous week. 21 million domestic so far, and 20 million from overseas for a worldwide total of 42 million, and the budget is only 9 million. So yeah, another successful low budget horror movie for Universal and producer Jason Blum. Number 8 is Cold Pursuit, the Liam Neeson movie. 3.3 million in its third weekend, drop off of about 45% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is about 27 million. And overseas, it hasn't opened that wide overseas yet. 8 million of that from overseas for a worldwide total of 35 million. So it's not doing as well as the previous Liam Neeson movies. So it'll probably close out about, maybe about 40 million or so when it ends its domestic run. Alright, number 9 is The Upside. In its 7th week, it pulled in 3.2 million, 42% drop off from the previous weekend, and it's nearing the 100 million barrier at 99.7 million. Almost there, a couple more days and it'll get there. Worldwide, it is at 110 million with 10 million of that from overseas. The budget's only about 38 million. So yeah, it's actually doing pretty well. Alright, closing out the top 10 is a movie called Run the Race. I think sort of a faith-based film about brothers who depended on themselves, grew up, and one is a football star and another is a track who runs the track. And the brother who plays football got a scholarship, but then an injury caused him to ditch that dream. And then the other brothers had to kind of pull the slack in a bit, had to hold up his side of the bargain. They want to get out, depend on the school scholarships to get a better life for themselves, to get out of their that town that they're in. So the movie opened to about 2.2 million, and that's all I wanted to say about this one. Alright, so that's it for the top 10. Let's move on to the new releases this weekend. We are going to have 2 wide ones. We're going to have Greta, the thriller starring Chloe Moretz and Isabelle Huppert. and it's directed by Neil Jordan, the guy who did Michael Collins, The Crying Game, and The Good Thief. And then Tyler Perry's Madea Family Funeral. Alright, let's start off with Greta. It's a thriller starring Chloe Grace Moretz as someone who found a bag on a train, and she went out to return it to the owner, who happens to be Greta, played by Isabelle Huppert, who turns out to be a psycho, and directed by Neil Jordan. Right now, the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes is actually pretty good, 73%. I expect the numbers to drop a bit. Unfortunately for Greta, this movie stars Moretz and Huppert, both of whom are not known to pack in the theaters. Interesting movie, right? A woman who is pretty possessive, right? I guess she treats all the people. I mean, she left, from the trailer, she leaves handbags on trains, and whoever returns them, I guess, gets her treatment and her motherly love, so to speak, right? It's a thriller, horror movie, kind of, and reviews are good so far. But like I said, Moretz and Huppert are not known to pack in the theaters, maybe for the art house, as well as the director, right? He's, sort of an art house director as well. So I think this movie is probably going to pull in or open to somewhere between 5 to 10 million this weekend. Alright, let's move on to Tyler Perry's Madea Family Funeral. Tyler Perry's Madea franchise is still going strong. Back in 2007, Madea Halloween 2, the second Halloween movie, opened to 21 million and went on to make 47 million domestically. And this is another in the series of the Madea franchise. So like I said, the movie is still going strong. Tyler Perry has his fans. The budget for this movie, I don't have the budget for this movie, but if the recent Madea movies are anything to judge or to go by, it's probably in the ballpark of somewhere in somewhere in the ballpark of 20 to 25 million. And as well with this movie, I think it's going to probably have a 20 million opening for Madea Funeral. It doesn't look as funny as the other ones, but I think for this target audience, it might hit a chord, right? It's a comedy about a funeral, so I guess there's laughs from that. Alright, so that's it for this week's podcast. Tune in next week to see how I did with my projections. Until then, take care, bye bye.